and we will go ahead and start with Helene.
Steve, good morning. I'll ask you the question I get most often from my neighbors. How good do you think the Wings are going to be this year?
Well, Helene, I hope our goal is to improve from last year. Um, Whether our younger players taking another step, with the addition of John Gibson in goal. How good? I can't really tell you at this stage, but I expect our team to be improved.
And this is the eve of your seventh camp. Do you feel, I know you've been very adamant about not putting a time frame on playoffs, but do you feel more pressure to get the team there?
Well, um, we're trying to improve every year. Ultimately, the goal here is to build a team that can compete for the Stanley Cup. I mean, you can't compete for the Stanley Cup, obviously, until you make the playoffs. But our goal, again, is to be a team that can compete for the Stanley Cup. So, again, these rebuilds take time. How much time? I can't really predict. Everyone's different. Where you finish, what happens in the lottery, who's available in the draft in a particular year. Those things are somewhat out of our control. We'll try to run it. We're going to continue to try and run a good program. We're going to continue to try and improve each season with the goal of becoming a playoff team and a team that eventually competes for a Stanley Cup. So I understand the frustration or maybe the lack of or I don't want to say patience because I think everybody's been pretty patient. But the sense of urgency within the fan base and in our local media, I understand it. But ultimately, you guys heard it when Kenny Holland was here. Like you want to go into a rebuild, it takes time. It takes a long time. It's not finishing at the bottom for a couple of years, getting a high pick, and in a way you go, it's over. Just looking around at all franchises, it's taken a long time for them to do it.
Thank you, Steve.
Max Bultman.
Hey, Steve, I remember a few years ago you talked about how any time in your career that you felt like you had to, or you forced a trade or a signing, those are kind of the ones you regretted and obviously try to avoid that. I'm wondering if that gets easier or harder when you're in the spot you're in now, where you've gotten better, you've gotten close, but haven't quite gotten in yet.
Um, no, we're constantly, we're perpetually looking at ways to improve the team with options that may or may not be out there and regarding trades, the cost to acquire the player, and do they fit in? And it's a relatively quiet, I think, off season around the league, relatively uneventful free agency period. So, things will come up along the way, and you just got to be prepared. So, no, I don't think it's any different in the situation we're in today than it would have been a year ago or 4 years ago.
And then Carter Bear obviously didn't play at the prospect showcase. Is he going to be? What's his status for camp? And are there any other injuries that you're going to be? Anyone you're?
Yeah, Carter's fully cleared to go. The decision by our performance staff was to hold him out. He hasn't really played games. He's been practicing, hasn't played since March, practicing skating with the guys. And the staff's thought was instead of throwing him right into a game in Dallas, is to, the next step is here in training camp into more intense practice, some, scrimmaging, red white game down in Grand Rapids on Sunday, and then get him into the preseason game. So he's fine. The only player at today who's not ready to go, who'll be out for a few weeks, is Simon Edmondson, who had a dealing with a lower body injury, and we'll have him ready to go sometime around the start of the regular season.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ben.
Hey, Steve, thanks for doing this. Guys, I mean, people like Pelika, Danielson, Nygaard, everybody talks about them. Is there a path for them? Is there a route for them to make this opening night roster, you think? Or do you have a roster, kind of a lineup kind of set in your head already?
There's a path for anybody who makes us better, Ted. Like we have just on one-way contracts alone, not counting the guys that would be on any level, which would be Simon in his last year. Marco might be missing somebody there, but um, yeah, 8 defensemen and our the 2 goaltenders. If somebody makes us better, somebody's forces their way into the lineup and they're too good to take out, they're in. It's not that complicated, and we'll figure out what we do if that's the case with any of them.
What'd you think of the prospects camp last week? Anybody stand out for you? And what's the future of that thing now? I mean, you went down to the 2 games last weekend.
The future of the camp is, or the tournament, whatever you want to call it, is undecided, undetermined. I've spoken to, with the league going to 4 preseason games next year. Talked to several GMs around the league about what their plan is, how they're going to handle preseason, what they're going to do with the rookie tournaments, rookie camps. American League preseason games, all sorts of things like that. So we don't really have a plan for next year. We're going to figure out what to do. Our options are simply to do nothing. Form a new group for a little tournament, hold just more of a development camp like we do in July. So kind of figure out what kind of makes the most sense and the best use of the players' time.
Sounds good. Thanks for this, Steve.
Yep.
Ansar?
Yeah, hi, Steve. Just what specifically about this roster gives you the most just hope or optimism that you guys can take the next step this year?
Well, we have inquiring John Gibson. We hope he gives us, at the end of the season, I talked about our team's overall save percentage. Hopefully with the combination of John and Cam can improve upon that. I look at our D core with Simon going into his second full year, Albert, who quietly had a very steady, solid year for us. Hopefully they both take another step. Marco Casper, getting or playing more minutes, I guess, simply down the stretch and performing very well. We're hopeful that he can continue on that trajectory and have a real positive impact, which I think he did last year. I know even the Moes and Lucases I consider still really young guys and still their career path is still on the rise. Expect more out of them, and then I think with the bottom of our lineup, I expect to get a little bit more production, which will help us 5-on-5, and then ultimately the last thing I think we're either 31st or 32nd in penalty killing. We have to improve that area. So. But most of, I think we can know what to expect out of our veteran group. And these guys are all pretty well conditioned, very professional. I don't expect to see any drop off in any of them. So really it comes from our younger guys just improving.
And just also, just having Todd here from the start of the season, I know a couple of the rookies, Casper, Johansson's games really took off once he arrived. How much of a difference can that make having him here from the start?
Marco, sorry, I missed the first part of your question, but you were referring to Marco?
No, Todd McClellan, just having him here.
Todd, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Well, he comes in midway through the season. You have as you know, there's very little practice time, ability to really work on things and alter things. And I think, coaching the second half of the season gave him a real good opportunity, and even down the stretch, to really get to know the players as on the ice and off the ice, and how they react in all different situations. And I think that will be helpful for him going into the season to maximize each of their ability, all the players' abilities. And for our players, I think again more of an understanding of what the coaches expect, how they run things, how they run their bench, their line combinations, things like that. Just I think everyone's a little bit will be comfortable um, and I say comfortable in a good way, not in a negative way. And Todd and his staff will push them. And again, I think that I know this group of players is motivated and they have a lot of pride and they're driven they want to make the playoffs as bad as y'all want them to do that as well. So I just with more time to prepare, I think it'll help Todd and the team.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Anything else?
Steve, kind of along with Ansar's question, there's some familiarity when you brought Todd in last season. How has your relationship and dynamic with him evolved throughout the offseason? And in terms of helping set that foundation for the group, how important is that?
Well, my last year as a player, was Todd's first year coaching with the Red Wings, and so I've known him for a long time and have remained in touch with him, and have always had a good rapport. I've enjoyed talking with him on not only on hockey but on everything, and nothing's really changed over the course of the summer. As you know, he's pretty approachable. He's a pretty easy guy to talk to, and so we are in constant communication and talking about our team, everything that's going on around the league and our players. And I think I understand what he's trying to do and his perspective on our team and on our players, where everybody fits. So having known him for a long time and kind of knowing the way he coaches, the way he handles his players, nothing, I don't think it really changed over the course of the summer.
Thank you.
John Shapiro?
Hey, Steve. We kind of saw this team last year once Andrew Kopp got hurt and kind of some of the center depth and everything like that. And obviously it was a year where Marco was really taking some strides. With Marco this year and down the middle, where do you kind of see him coming into this season? Is he your 2C now? Is he a guy you build a line around? Where do you kind of see him in his next step of his growth of where he's going?
Well, probably a better question for Todd, because ultimately he'll decide where everybody plays and who they play with. But based on the way the season ended last year, I see him playing, likely in one of those top lines, whether it's at center or on the wing. But my guess today, or my hunch today, would be that he's starting in the middle. And is he playing with Kaner and Alex, or is he on the wing with Dylan on a line? Those are options Todd has, and I guess it depends on how some of the other players perform. But I would expect him to be at center, and my guess would be that maybe he starts with Dylan and or excuse me, with Alex and Patrick. But again, that'll be Todd's decision.
And then second one, not on this team, but it's the first time we've spoken to you since. And one of the long things for fans has been, when will one of your former teammates, 91, Sergei Fedorov's number, be retired? And I just wanted to, since the first time we got to talk to you, since that was announced and that's the plans for that, what's it mean for you to kind of see that honor for Sergei, and when it comes to just kind of this becoming part of his number going into the rafters this season?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I think it's extremely well deserved. Periodically, since we've both retired and Sergey moving back to Russia, will speak periodically. I've run into him at World Championships and things over the years. And he was obviously an extremely important player on our Stanley Cup teams in the 90s and through 02. So I think it's great for the organization, great for our fan base, and very well deserved for Sergey. I had a chance to speak with him after it was announced, and he was very excited about it and is looking forward to coming back for the ceremonies.
Thanks, Steve.
Carlos Monarez.
Yeah, hey Steve. Last year you obviously had to make a coaching change. You guys still finished with fewer points, lower in the standings. Um, Helena asked you about the pressure. I just wonder, in your talks with Chris Ilitch, um, when you talk to him about, the playoff drought and everything you're doing still isn't kind of getting you to the next level, getting you to the playoffs, how much more pressure or urgency do you feel, especially this year, coming off a coach firing, to make the playoffs to justify keeping your job? Do you feel that urgency and pressure? If you don't make the playoffs this year, Chris might make a change.
Well, Carlos, I see progress in the organization. I look at it differently than you look at it. You just want us to make the playoffs, which is fine. I'm not going to argue with you about that. I look at the young players coming into the organization. I look at the young players playing on the Detroit Red Wings today. I'm hopeful that maybe one or two of them at some point, if not at the start, get into our lineup here. So at some point during the season, and we continue to build a young core that eventually is here for a long time and competes on a regular basis to make the playoffs. So that's what we're trying to do. Chris and I have spoken, and going back to when he hired me, that is going to take a long time, and we're going to be patient, and we're going to be, allow our young players to develop. We're going to rely heavily on the draft, and hopefully over time, these young players that we draft turn into NHL players. So how many years it's supposed to take? I don't know. Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 10? Ultimately, it's ownership's decision when they feel that they're not happy with the direction of the club or the plan. That's their decision. But Chris and I have spoken about it, and he's understood the process and where we're at. And again, I'm not going to speak for him, but we're not completely tone deaf. Obviously, Carlos, we know they're at the expectations and the hopes for our fan base and for the media as well, but we'll continue with the process and look for opportunities, as I said, to expedite it, whether that's through trade or free agency, but we'll continue with doing what we have to do. And ultimately, my job is to do what's right for the organization, and I will continue to do that.
Just a quick follow-up. Can you tell us, can you explain? I mean, it seems like what you're talking about is dynasty building. I think a lot of general managers think that way. I want to build something sustainable. Is it now just the time to consider just getting into the playoffs, something that might buy you a little bit more time, buy you sort of more buy-in from fans, from media, get people off your back?
Well, you talk about dynasties, like how many dynasties truly are there? I'm not, trying to build a dynasty. If that ever happens, God, we'll all be thrilled. Trying to build a team that competes for a Stanley Cup and can win a Stanley Cup. So, again, I'm going to do what I think is right, and with each draft, with each free agency period, with each trade deadline, with the goal of trying to improve our team. There is great value, no question, in making the playoffs. But if we go back to last year's trade deadline, to which the opportunity wasn't even there to do it, but to trade first round picks for rentals and things like that with older players that might get us in. Again, it's only my opinion, and it's ultimately my decision. Is one, those opportunities weren't there at the time, and we're not going to sacrifice that yet just to get in or maybe get in.
Larry Leach.
Good morning, Steve.
Hi, Larry.
Does the rising salary cap, make player development even more critical? I know that's always been a focus of yours. And have you made any changes in terms of adding personnel or strategy or technology in terms of developing your young guys?
Well, the rising cap, not sure how I it's hard to get players, again, with 32 teams, we're all trying to find impact players, and yeah, maybe so, Florida with the rising cap probably helped them retain all their guys. With the previous seasons, you watch the Stanley Cup winners having to let guys go because they couldn't, and replace them with cheaper guys. They simply couldn't make it work. But ultimately, I think it's still like for teams in our situation, I think you need those young players coming in to build that core. As far as development, I'd like to think we're pretty progressive as far as technology and led by Mike Barwas and his staff. They're at the forefront of any of the technology and things that not only for our prospects but all of our players to help not only make them perform at their best, but to improve with their fitness and their health in every possible way.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bob Duff.
Yeah, Steve, I'm just wondering, you brought in Travis Hammond kind of late in the summer. What was it you saw in him that you thought would be an asset to the club?
Well, we debate between carrying 7 and 8D. We wanted to see what happened in free agency on July 1 to see if there was a potential any right-hand shots that may become available or something through a trade. There was nothing that evolved there, so we felt it was important. Jeff Petrie left and signed with Florida, I think, on July 1st. Bring in another veteran just to help our young group of guys to play, whether it's with Simon or Albert. And again, depends on what Todd does, but to have eight defensemen gives us the depth. I think over the course of the season, you're going to expect to have some injuries. So we watched Travis play a lot in Ottawa last year through injuries. He played in their top four for significant stretches and performed very well. So just a veteran guy who's steady defensively, who plays with some edge to him. I think will help our guys.
Are you bringing anybody in on PTOs for training camp?
Not as of yet. We've talked to some players' agents and offered them some opportunities. Some have gone to other spots, and a couple of guys still, to my knowledge, haven't accepted a PTO. So, there's still a possibility that a guy might come in, but at this stage, we have no one.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.